Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled where in today's episode, you'll hear not one, not two, but 4 times. I don't know why I skipped 3. 4 times Karens trespassed and got what they deserved. So guys, today's episode are email submissions from longtime listeners. So I hope you guys enjoy the stories. And to the 2 people who submitted the stories, if you're listening, thank you so much. I absolutely love the stories. And I hope everybody listening today will as well. Oh, before we dive in, guys, if you want to submit your stories, do send it to the email in the description. Please do not type your stories in the form of comments. Guys, we're diving in. And please subscribe. My wife and I, and kids when they visit, live on a lake in a southern state that's very popular for summer vacations and weekend getaways. Now, this is probably due to it being located near a big city, making it a great choice for locals and families without needing otherwise lengthy or expensive travel plans. Now, there's many places to stay. There are campgrounds for those who like to rough it in tents, there's RV and camper sites, hotels, and rental houses from trailers to mansions. Now, this lake is owned and operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they own and maintain the lakefront, all of it. The Army Corps does provide permits to property owners for a nominal fee to allow them to put up a boat dock for personal use. The Army Corps owns the lakefront, but the permitted dock is private property of the permit holder. This will become important later. These permits also come with tons of rules and regulations regarding what can and can't be done with that dock on the lake. The Army Corps strictly limits the number of docks and their locations so as not to create excessive erosion or problems with safety. Now, because there's a limited number, not every house on the lake has a permit. In fact, most have none and therefore they don't have a dock. Now, those houses with a dock permit can easily add $500,000 to their property value. Violate the rules and the Army Corps can pull your permits and you lose $500,000. So you can imagine the dock owners are going to be very protective and ensure the rules are followed. Now, I do have a dock permit and I live at the end of a quiet cove. I have a 1-slip dock with a party deck on top and a couple of jet ski ramps. For the first year, we had no boat or jet skis, so the dock was empty. Behind me are 2 houses that rent to vacationers that do not have dock permits. Because the rentals can look out the back of the house and see my dock, many have made the mistake of thinking that it was available for their unlimited use. Now, I've had to walk down and tell the vacationers that they were indeed trespassing and could not use my dock. The liability and possible violations of people that I don't know are too much. Now, most people do understand. They apologize for the misunderstanding and go on to have a nice vacation. But then there's Karens. Now, Karen number 1, I wake up to on a summer Saturday morning, 3 years back. On this morning, I walk to my dock to have a coffee. When I get to the dock, I see a very nice wake surfing boat. Now, I didn't have a boat, let alone a $200,000 boat. I was scratching my head wondering who it belonged to when Karen and her husband starts yelling at me from the rental to get away from their boat before they called police. I motioned them down to the dock and they came yelling at me the whole way. They were yelling at me saying, "You shouldn't be on property that doesn't belong to you," and "Back away from our boat or my husband is gonna hurt you." Those types of comments hurled the whole way down. Now, there is a large no trespassing sign with the owner's phone number and address, mine. I point to it while they're still threatening me. Karen quickly rips the sign down and informs me that the lake is public property, which is true, and so are the docks on it, which is false. I then point to the permit that she can't rip down as it's on a pole out of her reach. I try to tell her that they have to move the boat or I'm gonna have it towed, and that's when the husband pushes me off the dock into the lake. They both laughed and told me to not come back if I knew what was good for me. Now, my wife was watching from the back deck of the house. She saw the assault and called the county sheriff's office. So as this lake is shared jurisdiction of several counties and the park rangers, 4 police boats and 2 police cars showed up at the dock and our house. Karen and the husband came down screaming that I should be arrested for trying to vandalize their boat. The police got separate stories, but most importantly, they checked the dock permit. They instantly see that I'm the owner and Karen and her husband are indeed trespassing. Now, the assault was a lot of he said, she said, and was not pursued, but they know it happened because nobody swims wearing blue jeans, a polo shirt, and leather shoes. But the trespassing made up the difference. The boat was impounded for illegal use of a private dock, and the Army Corps fined them $5,000. Karen and her husband were each fined for trespassing too, which is a county fine of $254 plus court costs, and the boat towing and storage fee is a standard $750. The owner of the rental property, call him Fred, is a great guy and was called by police because of the incident. He immediately kicks Karen, her husband, and their family and friends off his property and ensured they left. He kept the rent because they violated the Do Not Cause Trouble clause. Guys, that is such a crazy fine they received. But I guess that's the price they pay for entitlement, right? Consider that the a-hole tax for Karen's husband pushing OP into the water and destroying OP's property by ripping off his no trespassing sign. So here comes the story about Karen number 2. Again, I wake up on a Saturday, this time, to see a whole bunch of young and attractive ladies in swimwear on my party deck above the dock. Now, my wife wanted to handle this problem as she doesn't trust me with 10 or 12 younger pretty girls. She told me to turn on my cell phone camera, which is a trick we learned with Karen number 1. It turns out the ladies were having a bridesmaid weekend and were just looking to party it up. Now, as alcohol was involved, a lot of it, we could not allow them on the dock for the fear that they would jump off the upper deck, which is 10 feet above, into the water. Firstly, it is illegal. It's an Army Corps rule. And secondly, a boy drowned doing that off a neighbor's dock at a high school graduation party the week before. These ladies were hammered at 10 a.m. and less than cordial. Karen, the bride-to-be, was the worst. She called my wife a jealous old hag, and my wife calmly informed them to leave. The now agitated Karen then throws a beer bottle at my wife, hitting her in the face. So I then called 911, the police showed up in force, and the weekend was over for them. Fred again apologized to us, threw the renters out, and he kept the money. And Karen was arrested for felony assault with a weapon, all caught on video. As my wife suffered a broken nose and stitches, there was no way Karen was avoiding jail time, even though we weren't seeking to press charges, as her father paid the medical bills plus damages. Also, as there was sufficient evidence, the state pursued the conviction. Now, I was told the judge made her spend 44 days in jail, exactly long enough for Karen to have to cancel her wedding plans and reschedule. Now, I would love to see the looks on the faces of the groom, her family, his family, and invited guests when they heard that news. Sorry, the bride gave up the white dress for an orange jumpsuit. After that, we purchased a boat, jet skis, and other stuff, so the dock was no longer empty. Most of the misunderstanding about the dock stopped. Fred also put in his web advertising in bold that the rentals had no dock, and that all renters must stay off the docks as they are private property. Even then, there was Karen number 3. So on a hot August Saturday morning, again, I go down to my dock to get our boat ready for a day on the lake. I have to take down the boat cover, fold it, stow it away, and set up the mirror so I can see the water skiers or the tube that we pull behind the boat, and generally make sure that we have all the provisions we need for a day on the lake. I make sure we have towels, life vests, water bottles filled, and ice in the cooler and treats for the dog. I also uncover the jet skis for if my son and his friends want to go out on them. When I'm about done, I go back up to the house to say that we're all ready to go. I grab the keys and then go back down to see Karen and her entitled husband and bratty kids on my boat, opening up the storage containers and poking around. Karen sees me and immediately yells at me and says, "You there, caretaker guy, where can we find the keys?" I respond with, "Get off my boat and off my dock now." Now this did not register with her as she says, "I saw you getting everything ready for us and now we want to go. Give me the keys now." Now, before I could repeat what I said earlier, Karen adds, "We saw the dock behind the house in the advertising. We paid a lot of money to the owner to use it and we want to do it now." She then added, "I know the owner personally and I will get you fired if you don't get us the keys now." So at that point, I called Fred and told him what was going on. I then called the police to have Karen and her family removed. So Fred then calls Karen and Karen now tells me, "See, the owner knows what's going on. He called me and boy are you gonna be in trouble now." So she then starts yelling at Fred about how I will not give her the keys and how I should be fired for insubordination and on and on. Then I see Karen turn red and I hear Karen yelling at Fred about how he's cheating them out of money and how she would call the police if her and her family did not get to use this boat. So the police finally arrive and by now they know me by name and ask what's going on. Before I could answer, Karen yells how I'm trying to steal money from them by not letting them use the boat, which they paid good money to use. Now, of course, the police take her aside to get her story, and same with me. The police told Karen that the dock is not the property of Fred, and in fact belongs to me. They also tell Karen that this dock has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 no trespassing signs, complete with contact information of the owner. Karen, her husband, and the kids were trespassing and had to leave, or they would be fined and then removed. Karen then screams at me, calling me a thief, a liar, and she spit on me. Then Karen, as she left the boat, jams a pen through the vinyl seating of several seats, causing major damage. She was immediately arrested for vandalism and assault. Fred again apologized and kicked them out and kept the rent money. I have a civil judgment against them for the damage to the boat, which the husband paid through his lawyer. Karen got 6 months of probation, where she was forced to attend counseling and work volunteer hours daily at a mental health facility. Guys, I absolutely love these Karen encounters so much. It takes a super entitled person to trespass on someone's property and then argue about it. And you can't even feel bad for these people who unknowingly stumbled upon a dock they thought they could use. Because in all 3 instances, they either assaulted OP, his wife, or vandalized his property. But guys, all 3 Karens got exactly what they deserved, and that's all we want, right? Justice. My favorite one though was when the Karen had to postpone her wedding because she went all psycho and assaulted OP's wife. Could you imagine? Oh, I gotta cancel my wedding because I threw a bottle at this woman's face when she told me to get off her property. So guys, let me know which encounter was your favorite. And trust me, I'll be keeping in contact with OP to see if there's any other wild stories he'd like to submit because the stories are friggin' wild. So, to set the scene, I live in a very small beach town in North Carolina. We get a crazy amount of tourists in the summer months, but not quite as much as Myrtle Beach. We do get our fair share of naive tourists, and during my time as a lifeguard, I've probably been asked about 3,000 questions about sharks or jellyfish or stingrays in a day. Instead of saving people from the water, I spend most of my time telling people to stay off the dunes or telling people to not swim up to boats. So anyway, this story involves a tourist Karen and her son. So on this day, I saw that there was supposed to be some excellent waves and decided to head to the beach for a little shredding action. My beach access is a part of a private neighborhood, and is paid for by my HOA, which means that it's private property. Once I get up to it, I see a middle-aged woman and her son, who's maybe 6 years old, standing at the gate holding floats. I think to myself, great, I have a little arguing to do, because people are supposed to stay off unless they pay taxes for it to be maintained. So I walk up and the conversation goes something like this. Karen says, "Hey, what's the code for this beach access?" I tell her, "Well, it's a private access. Are you visiting? 'Cause I've never seen your face around here. Where are you staying?" Karen then points at a house that isn't a part of the HOA. It was developed after my neighborhood was. I tell her, "Oh, that house is a part of a different neighborhood. That one uses public access. You see where the sidewalk is?" Karen then says, "Oh, come on. It's right across the street. Just tell us the code." I tell her, "No, ma'am. This access is paid for by our own taxes. There's a public access literally 50 feet to the left with no code." She then says, "No, I demand that you let me and my son through or I'm gonna call the police." I told her, "Go ahead. But in the meantime, I'm gonna use the public access. If you care to join me on the beach, then you can follow me on that access." I left her and her son red-faced like that and walked to the public access. About 10 minutes go by and I kinda forgot about the pair. I'm putting wax on my board and waiting for my friend to show up. I then turn away from my board to head down to the water to look for a spot to rip, and lo and behold, I see the kid playing with my surfboard. Now, keep in mind that my surfboard is a 9-foot beast and has to weigh at least 50 pounds. My dad got it in Maui about 20 years ago from a custom board store that's no longer open, and it cost about $700 or $800. I run back up to the pair, and my usually good nature was out the window. I start screaming saying, "Hey lady, don't touch my stuff." Karen then says, "Don't raise your voice at me." I tell her I can speak to you however I want. Tell your son to stop grabbing my stuff. At this point, he had it fins up and was sitting on it, which is a massive no-no for surfing. It curves upwards, so if you put too much weight on it, it might snap. The boy isn't responding to me asking him, so I grab the surfboard to lift it. Now as soon as I lift it, the boy literally flops and falls forward into the sand. And Karen screams, "You just attacked him! Get away from my son! My husband's a lawyer and I'll sue you for everything you've got." I tell her, "What the hell, lady? I'm defending my property. You can't sue me for that. My son just wanted to see it. He's not hurting anyone." At this point, her son is bawling and he's screaming something along the lines of, "Mommy, I think my bones are broken." I told him, "You're fine. Lady, don't touch my stuff again and please get away from me or I'm gonna call the police." Now, a lot of people around me are very angry at the lady, and I notice my friend has shown up and has this massive grin on his face. When I look away to make a face at him, the lady tries to yank my board out of my hands. I just let it drop. It then falls on her foot and she screams like I just attacked her. I then tell her to grow up, grab my surfboard and go to the water. I then turn to the kid and say, don't turn out like your mom. The lady is still screaming and getting shamed off the beach by other beachgoers. Now that's about it. Nothing much compared to the absolute BS I've seen on the sub, but it's still a wake up to me that many people like this do exist. They actually do indeed exist, guys, and a lot of them do act like 2-year-olds who don't know how to share. So my friends, if you enjoyed OP stories today, do show some love in the comments. And if you submitted a story, please know that I'm getting to it. Guys, I get a lot of submissions every day, so it's gonna take some time. It really is. And Steve-O's freaking useless.
Excuse me?
I'm kidding, Steve-O. Anyways, if you missed the last episode on the channel, I will link it. That was so bad, I'm sorry. I'll link it right here. OP has a new neighbor who hates his trees and demands he chops them all down. Imagine that, getting a new neighbor and he's like, boy, I hate your friggin' trees, cut them down. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. And Steve, I'm sorry, I love you too, man.